Okay. Welcome to the second in our series of Facebook Live interviews. We're going to be doing these every Tuesday and Thursday at 3 o'clock. Tom Rosenbauer, of course, is tying flies Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 3 o'clock. So the 3 o'clock hour is your Orvis Facebook Live time.
Power hour.
Yes, I'm Phil Monahan. I'm the editor of the Orvis Fly Fishing blog, and I'm joined today by Jesse Haller, who is one of our product developers and really our resident Euro-Nymphing expert. So to kick things off, Jesse, why don't you just tell us who you are and how you ended up with this awesome job?
Hi. Thanks, Phil. My name's Jesse Haller. From Wisconsin. Spent most of my 20s and early 30s in Colorado as a fly fishing guide. Came to Vermont, continued to be a fly fishing guide, and managed a small retail store. And eventually was fortunate enough to start working for Orvis about 5 years ago as a product developer, designing and developing fishing product for our fishing and hunting team. I do things like packs, fly lines, accessories, new fly development. I'm also the field testing coordinator, so I work with the rest of the design and development team, including my products, to get stuff out of the field for design and development, for field testing, and then I ended up here, and now I'm on Facebook Live.
Well, one thing you left out is you have done a fair amount of competition fishing, yes?
Yes. I'd say about 8 years ago, I started competitively fishing, doing like some local and then regional, and then eventually fishing in some United States Fly Fishing Team regional qualifying events. I've competed in 2 national championship events. And several other different kind of forums, not necessarily the FIP style competitions as well. So I've done a little bit of competitive fishing and been very fortunate to be able to kind of learn from some of the best in that community.
And when did you first get your first taste of, do you call it tightline nymphing? Do you call it Euro-Nymphing? What do you call it?
European nymphing is typically how to refer to it now, but tightline is fine as well. Tactical nymphing, I've heard short line, contact. I've heard several different adjectives. European nymphing just kind of pays homage to the kind of some of the roots of it. Now, there's a lot of people who would, say in Pennsylvania much earlier, there was also techniques that were similar that were coming out, the Humphreys-Harvey methods and things like that. So, Euro-Nymphing has just been a way I've described it. I don't think there's any right, wrong, or way. How about just nymphing? Yes.
How'd you get started in this particular style?
Curiosity, really. Some time ago, you just kind of heard about it. You start to see it pop out in like little areas on social media, some writing about it in books, and eventually it just kind of, curiosity was like, all right, I just got to kind of learn and figure this out. And I didn't have anybody around me. I just moved to Vermont at the time. And so it was a trial and error process, just try to figure out how to learn the technique. And it was watching a few videos, the little amount of stuff that there was at the time. Now there's an immense amount of assets available to people. And then eventually the real kind of booster was just taking the opportunity that an open spot happened on a United States Fly Fishing Team regional qualifier that happened to be across the lake over in Lake Placid. And I signed up for it because someone dropped out 24 hours before. And that 48 hours completely changed, my perception of it and my ability level, simply because the people there were amazing, very helpful. And I learned a ton about it at that time. And since then, the community that I met there embraced me, fortunately, and taught me a lot too.
Were there any big names at that event?
There were several members of the United States Fly Fishing Team. I don't remember specifically the names at hand, but any one of those events are going to have a bare minimum of 4 of the United States Fly Fishing National Team members, whether world team or national team members. But not to mention, there are several people who maybe aren't of national team accreditation that are fantastic nymph anglers that participate in competition events, and then many that don't even fish in competitive events that are very skilled. Tori Collins comes to mind, a guy down in Connecticut. He's a very talented angler. And those people can share information, as well, which has been really helpful.
Cool. So, I mean, ostensibly the reason we're talking today is that there are 2 new Euro-Nymphing rods coming out. Some people might only know about one of them, so maybe we're revealing some exciting information today. But
Sure.
Can you talk about how these rods sort of came to be, how the process started, and how you worked through it?
Absolutely. So it's been a long kind of journey into where we are today for kind of European nymphing specific rods through Orvis. The first rod that comes to mind was predates me actually, which was the Helios 2 10-foot 3-weight. And that was a project that was done in correlation with a couple external partners, and we designed that rod, and it became it was a solid rod. It's a very good generalized rod, but it wasn't quite tuned to the European nymphing needs. So it still worked great. I knew a lot of people that was their preferred European nymphing rod, but as technology progressed and our knowledge and the industry kind of progressed around it, we kind of decided I came on and we decided to do the Recon model, the previous Recon model, and a 10-foot 3-weight. And that one we spent a lot of time. So you go through the process of building a prototype, kind of building a mentality of these are the attributes we want the rod to possess. We want it to have solid backbone, sensitivity, smooth transition. Tippet protection is another huge element of it. So we set some criteria. And from that criteria, we started to build blanks. And I'm not a rod designer. A lot of kudos to our, domestic manufacturing facility down at the Orvis Rod Shop here in Manchester, down the hill. And we just started building rods. And so eventually we got to a point where we felt like we had something pretty good, put it out into field testing, took some feedback, made some other iterations, and landed on what was the first 10-foot 3-weight Recon. From there, about a year and a half later, with the launch of the Helios 3, we launched the 10.5-foot 3-weight Helios 3 fly rod, which was another really nice rod, a nice step forward for us. The 10.5-footer, great versatility rod overall too. A little bit more of a backbone on that rod. Great tip sensitivity. Good lightness in hand. So that was a really nice success for us. And then last year we launched in our kind of good landscape a 10-foot 3-weight Clearwater, which I think for the bang for your buck is probably the best value European nymphing rod out there. Personal, obviously biased opinion, but a really nice rod there. And then that leads us to the launch of Recon 2.
Hold on one sec. Why don't we back up just a little bit before we launch into that? Can you give us sort of a high-level overview of what is different about a European nymphing rod than from your average 9-foot 4-weight?
Well, I mean, I think so great question, right? A traditional fly rod, as with most in fly fishing, is really built to take the power and energy created from your arm through the rod to the fly line to deliver a fly, right? With European nymphing, we use long leaders. In some situations, people do not even use the coated fly line anymore, and heavily weighted flies. So it's a lot different to try to be able to project a European nymphing rig than it is with a traditional fly line. So in doing that, just getting the flies to their destination, you need a certain amount of attributes like a softer loading rod that will help load those long leaders easily and then propel the flies into position. Once the flies are in the water, you need to have sensitivity in the rod. So the rod needs to be able to sense the strikes with some level of accuracy. So you don't want to have it too wobbly, too heavy, things of that nature. So those are attributes that are considered in. And then it's fish fighting ability, which is part backbone with the having a little bit of second gear, if you could call it, in the lower part of the rod, as well as having a tip that has a tip and midsection that have enough give that it gives you tipper protection. Kind of the goal with European nymphing is getting your flies down in the water column to the strike zone as fast as possible. And that can be done by fishing lighter tippets. The lighter your tippet, the faster it's going to cut through the water. So when you're fishing 6, 7X, for those wild people fishing 8X, you really need to have a rod that when you hook into a decent sized fish, you're going to be able to have some kind of tippet protection. So those are attributes that are kind of important. And you're trying to find this happy mix of all those things. And some rods are going to have more backbone. Some rods are going to have more tip sensitivity. Some rods are going to balance better than others with a really light rig. Some people intentionally heavily weight the reel to get a specific balance methodology. There's a lot of different, wants and likes in the European nymphing rod world. But those are kind of the main things that we're chasing.
And why the extra length? Why 10 or 10 and a half?
That's a great question as well. So it's a lot of it has to do with reach, right? You're not throwing your flies at it. You're not fishing the 45, right? Doing the right angle nymphing, the 90-degree kind of methodology where you're casting 45 up and fishing a 45 down. You can do that, but the further you get away, the more the pendulum plays in the European nymphing. So you're dragging your flies. What you're trying to do most of the time is fish close to yourself and mainly upstream that allows the flies to drift relatively drag free to you. And having that longer rod allows you to reach over some complex currents. It can, allows you to be able to fiddle with your rod angle to maintain the least amount of drag as possible. The difference between, really good anglers and excellent anglers is their ability to kind of control micro drag, which is almost a silly, nerdy thing to say, but the ability to truly understand that there are all these different currents working and length of the rod can assist with that considerably.
Cool. All right, so let's talk about this new Recon and the process by which you came to help get it,
sure,
bring it to market.
Well, so I think the kind of stock thing to talk about really with the new Recon is in general. This is first of all, it's American-made rod down at a rod shop here in Manchester. Is one of the greatest features of it is it benefited highly from a lot of the learnings from H3, right? There was a construction technique that was developed with the Helios 3 technology, and we were able to take that construction technique and lend it into the Recon. So you're going to get that more torsional stability, less reverberation through the rod. So it's for smoother casting, smoother, fish playing. Overall, the rod gets, a lot of help from that, those learnings. So that alone was a huge step forward for the Recon family, already being a really nice rod series. But how did we make it better? We took all the work that we put into H3 and trickled down that technology into Recon. And for the European nymphing models, we took, so the previous Recon was in the market for about 2 years, maybe 2.5 before we actually, maybe even 3, to be honest. So we had a lot of opportunity for people to get out there and fish it. And we had a lot of really positive. At 2.5 ounces, it was the lightest Euro rod at that particular configuration at 10-foot 3-weight out on the market. We had a lot of really positive feedback. We had a couple areas where we could get better. And so we focused on some of those, smoothness and the overall blank in the way that it performs. We used the really awesome reel seat technology that we took from Helios 3 and put that onto the Recon. We've got this awesome, quick starting thread. Oh, can almost get here with the wall there. It spins up and down really fast. That's really cool configuration from the H3 as well. This kind of guided, doesn't need to rotate, collar here that'll lock in your reel. Down locking like the other rods as well. The modified full Wells grip. Am I getting it in here? There it is. Which is awesome. The quick rod identifier, really cool thing. But overall, the real story is the performance with this new rod. I think it took the great success of our previous Recon and really made it that much better. I have been fishing the new Recon. It's available in a 10-foot 3-weight and a 10-foot 2-weight. I've been fishing the 10-foot 2-weight for a little over 6 months now, and it's quickly became my go-to European nymphing rod. So really excited about that, and to have a 2-weight offered into the line, which was another opportunity for us, that we had not built any 2-weights at this point, and so we're excited about that as well.
Can you talk a little bit about the testing process that you put this new rod through?
Thank you. So, I mean, it kind of goes back to overall to listening. I heard Jim say this the other day. It's really about listening, right? So through our field testing program and working with the people who have become kind of our consultants in all things Orvis fly fishing, but we have an additional set of people that help us with our European nymphing gear. We got rods and prototypes out. First, it's kind of starting like, here's the original Recon. How are we doing? What's our opportunity? And so we get some feedback there. Hey, you could do this with the taper. I really like that it does this. I don't like that it does this so much. Here's some opportunity. And then if you start to see trends, you really are able to kind of key in on that. So then we built our field testing models of this new Recon and went back out to the collective group, got those rods out there and started to get feedback in from there. And you're always... it's like talking spay fishing. As like you talk to a group of European nymphing anglers, it's like, hey, what's your leader formula? You'll get 10 different answers. You ask people what their preferences are in a fly rod performance. There's going to be some stuff that's our kind of givens. It's like, it's got to protect tippet. I want it to be sensitive. But as far as the taper and how it performs, how it loads, how it handles fighting fish, everybody has different preferences. The tip, some people like to really fish a lot of slack in their line, believe it or not, and some people like to have it really under tension. And they require different tips, in different midsections of how they're. So we were able to take that information, and really there were some really clear lanes that we were getting, and the couple that we missed. So another iteration, sent that out. And we got pretty unanimous feedback that we were where we wanted to be for this fly rods series. So we're excited. And that's the cool thing about the Recons in general. They're very specifically kind of built. It's not just like, here's our taper and it's all right, 3-weight, 4-weight, 5-weight, 6-weight, 7-weight. They really kind of tweak some stuff in there to make sure the 7-weight was doing the stuff that 7-weight should do versus, a 9-foot 4-weight should do. So I think that's a really cool aspect of something they did. So
then you're saying that the 3-weight and the 2-weight are not just two versions of the same rod, but they're each unique rods.
Yes, they're probably closer, to each other than, say the 9-foot 5-weight, right? Because you're not gonna, if you took if we took this 2-weight and made it a 9-foot 2-weight and then put it against a 9-foot 5-weight, they're going to be very different action wise. But the two European nymphing rods, aside being specifically 2-weight and 3-weight kind of versions of it, in the European nymphing sense of what 2 and 3 weights are, they're not always the truest version of what a 3-weight should be. It's like, this butt is more like a 5-weight and the tip is more like a 1-weight, but those are the numbers that we've kind of dictated on that. The Helios 3 is actually very close. A 10.5-foot 3-weight is actually really close to a true 3-weight by action wise, but these rods are a little bit different than that in general. The 3-weight, the 2-weight and 3-weight are really just the difference between what a 2 and a 3-weight would be between the two of them. So the 3-weight's the awesome general purpose rod, the rod that can handle 95% of the European nymphing technique stuff that you want to do. Whereas the 10-foot 2-weight is a little bit lighter, a little bit more sensitive, longer leaders. You're probably not going to get away fishing, the 2 4-mil beads. You could, but it's just, you're going to be working hard on it. So the 2-weight's meant to be protect that lighter tippet and maybe some of the lighter rigs in general.
Do we ever talk about the people who help us on the development end? Or
well, yeah, sure, absolutely. We have members of the United States Fly Fishing Team. Those that I do work with. George Daniel in general, though, is probably one of our top. He's an ambassador for us. He helps us with just about all of the product that we put out in general, but he's been a huge influence on our European nymphing product line in general. And then I've, like I said, there are a lot of people who are not necessarily connected with a competitive scene that are fantastic anglers that we work with as well. Because I haven't had them sign a disclaimer, I won't mention anybody specifically by name. But we have a lot of really good partners out there, and we're grateful for all that. I mean, I think one of the reasons why we've had such success in that is because we've had big ears, and really tried to learn from the people who know the most about this, and continuing to evolve too. This is a very fast evolving technique. And although some of it doesn't change, there's new methodology, there's new leader formulas, there's new desires and equipment out there. And we continue to try to evolve to stay as close as we can within reason.
Cool. Julia, I think we have a couple of questions about the Recon. Are you still there? Did we lose Julia? Here, maybe I'll scroll up. Hold on. So, someone wants to know which reel you paired with your 2-weight.
So I've been fishing. I got it right here. I've been fishing a Mirage USA 2-weight. This is not the LT. This is the actual Mirage USA.
So we've had Rob's questions actually coming through the last couple of minutes here.
Hold on one sec. Go ahead, Jesse.
So this is another one of those matter of preference kind of things. Some people like to build their rigs as light as possible, right? They want to make it just as light as they possibly can. I actually prefer the reel sides, the hand, the part of the rod that's below my hand. I actually like it to be a little bit heavier, so it creates kind of a little bit more of a bouncier pendulum. So I fish a slightly heavier reel. It actually is it's not really balanced. It's actually a little bit on reel heavy, REEL heavy. But otherwise, I have fished the LTs and the 3 on my Euro-Nymph rods, actually. Get great line retrieve as well, and then get a little bit better balance. You're going to shave some weight with the Mirage LT. The Hydros SL2 is a great option. I think that's what we pair with it in our outfit in general. That's a great option as well. But currently, my go-to reel for most of my Euro-Nymphing is the Mirage USA 2.
Nice. Okay, Julia.
All right. So Hot Lake Lodge is asking about the new Recon rods and wants to know if they come in a black stealth finish.
They do not. They come in a matte olive. I don't know if you can see this. Our previous generation, I've got a lamp here, but our previous generation had a little bit more gloss to it. This has got a matte finish similar to the finish that's on the current Helios 3, but it's a dark olivey finish. As a matter of fact, it's a really cool finish when you get it under the sunlight. It actually kind of seems to be, depending on what the light is, it's very matte, but it has a couple different colors come out. It's kind of neat. It's almost like a little iridescent. But at the moment, no, there's not a covert version of the Euro-Nymph rods. Yet. I don't know. Maybe if we keep asking, they'll make one.
Okay.
All right. Ryan wants to know what reel you pair with the 2-weight.
All right, we did that one already.
Okay, I missed that. Let's see. What else? Okay, we've got okay. Chris is asking, getting into Euro-Nymphing this year, and I'm struggling a bit with a couple of things. One, the wind we get on the Missouri seems super hard to make Euro-Nymphing effective. Any tips? And 2, I've tried 3 different leaders, and they all have the same annoyance of that loop-to-loop through the guides. Can't I just use 20 to 30 feet of maxima? Thanks.
Okay, so I'm going to answer them backwards. Yes, to the maxima, sure. What I would recommend is just looking up a little information on the mono rig, which would allow you to do that. Totally understand with the loop-to-loop moving through the guides. You can use the finger trap method, which you can actually just get rid of the loop-to-loops. You can try to do a needle knot to lower that. You can fish a lot shorter leader. If you fish a thin European nymphing line, you can fish a lot shorter so you actually don't bring that knot through. Or you can extend that leader considerably and then not actually have that knot coming through as well. Those are different methodologies. Could you explain the first one I missed? I heard Missouri. It's River or Missouri.
It's very windy. He's struggling to Euro-Nymph in the wind.
So listen, European nymphing is a fantastic technique, and it's deadly effective. And in some situations, it is the absolutely best technique. fast water, shallow pockets are, there are places that European nymphing is not the best technique. Wind is a very challenging element of European nymphing because you're trying to keep your line up. So the thinner your line, just like the water, it'll move around it a little bit better. But honestly, I found in those really windy situations, I'm going to fish a dry dropper or an indicator. And I know that's funny to say in a European nymphing conversation, but diversity is the key. European nymphing is deadly effective, but if you're throwing a European nymph rig at rising fish, then, let's be honest, be completely diverse in the situation. In that situation, though, for an example, if it is very windy and it's hard to get out to those specific spots, you still have the advantage of having that thin tippet underneath. So it's kind of like fishing a right angle nymph rig. I will actually put an indicator like a airlock or a thingamabobber or even pinch on things right on the cider material, grease up the upper part of the leader, and then fish it like it's an indicator rig for a little while. And then maybe get to a spot that's not as windy and you can kind of go back to the Euro rig. But I feel your challenge. I've been there many times, and I've honestly found you can weight up your flies. You can make them really heavy to try to not get blown around, but then you're more likely to anchor on the bottom and get snagged. So being the dynamic angler, to borrow from George, and understand there are areas or times and areas that it works really well, and there's other times when you can use a different technique to get better. And kudos for being out on a really windy day anyways. And if it was on the Missouri River, was that the comment? Yeah, that's the wind blows in Montana, no doubt about it. So, and it's
full disclosure, Chris owns the Orvis shop in Craig. So,
this is Chris.
Yeah.
Oh, hey Chris, what's up, man? Yes, it's challenging, but it's a very good river to utilize that technique for sure. And that's just been the option that I've gone. I've done the drive, been there and had that same challenge. And occasionally I'll weight up, and if I can get enough weight onto that anchor fly and not get snagged, then I'll go with that method. If that's just not working, then I'll just have to go to the indicator. But the right angle nymph rig, which works really well.
Here's a stupid question for you, Jesse. Is it possible to Euro-Nymph out of a boat?
Yes. But it is, but you need to everybody has to be kind of acutely aware of what's going on, because with the Euro-Nymph rig, you're going to penetrate the water column and you're going to get going a lot slower. It's not like the indicator on the surface is driving along with essentially the speed of the boat and you're mending to kind of slow it down. You're going to get down there, and if the person rowing understands, hey, I got to keep the person a little bit closer and I got to keep the boat a little bit slower, then absolutely. I've been in the situation on the Missouri River with a great guide, and he recognized how to kind of put me in the best position and keep the pace of the boat going, and it was deadly effective that day. So absolutely.
Cool. All right, Julia, any more?
All right. We have a development question. Richard's asking, do you design rods to release date deadlines or only release them when you're happy with them? I imagine it's a bit of both, but the design timeline would be interesting to know. So
I'm going to answer this the best I can, but I'm going to say Sean Combs is the true master of that domain. Orvis will always, we'll look at a rod launch and say this is coming, but we're not looking at 12 months from now we're going to launch a rod. We're looking at 4 years from now we're going to launch a rod. So that gives us abundance of time to make sure that the rod series within the family get the time. Now, we're going to start early on 905s and 908s, but we're always going to make sure, and in field testing, there's going to be places like, we need to try out a 9'7" weight. Who are our streamer people, or who are our carp fishermen, or who are our light tackle bonefish people. So we're always kind of doing that. Again, Sean would probably answer that more, but I'm going to take a stab at saying that was relatively close. To put it like this, we're already developing rod series that don't necessarily have a launch date at this point, but we're working towards technologies for certain series already.
Cool. And I see that Roger Bird wants to know if these rods are available as contest prizes. Well, Roger, today is the last day of our new season Recon Instagram photo contest. So go to our Instagram page and upload a photograph. You can find all the details on the blog and on
I'll link it up.
and the Facebook. Julia will put the link in here.
Nice. Good luck.
So now let's move on to the Clearwater.
Awesome. So, so the Clearwater 10-foot-3 we launched last spring, and at $198 the performance, we thought the value was great. We did a field testing with that. We had just as much rigorous field testing on the Clearwater as we did with the H3 family. If that gives any kind of indication on how we view our design and development and our field testing program, that products that we're designing and developing all get rigorous field testing through our expert network. And so we did the 10-foot-3, and we were very happy with that rod. And it's been a great, just starting to get into European nymphing. Want a rod. I need a kit rod. The Clearwater is the right fit for me. And the 10-foot-3 took off with a lot of success. Because of that, we've decided to build it in a 10-foot-2/8 as well. For those people who are looking for that kit rod, maybe they have a Helios 3 10.5-foot 3-weight, kind of want a 2-weight, but not sure if I'm ready for a Recon or something of that nature. So we have this really phenomenally performing 10-foot-2/8 Clearwater, which will be available in a few weeks, any day now, I think. That will become available as well. So we're really excited about that. And that one, Phil and I were just discussing before we went live that he was watching George Daniels' program yesterday. Is that correct? And
yeah,
we
posted a video of him fishing yesterday, and I believe he was using that Clearwater 2/8.
Yeah, really fun rod. I mean, for those people who are curious about what a 2/8 and how that can adapt to what they're looking for, that's a great rod to try. I fished it for a fair amount. I actually fished that one prior to the Recon 10-foot-2/8. I keep looking over at it because it's sitting there, and I really need to go fishing. So it's got me twitching a little bit. But it's a neat stick for sure. It's so to really talk about it too, it's like, so what are the differences that I'm going to get from a Clearwater to a Recon? The Clearwater in general is, I think the value performance on those is exceptional. They're probably going to be just a splash heavier. The quality of cork is a little bit different as you come up to Recon, the quality of the materials used and the construction techniques that go forward, but you're still going to get an extremely high performance rod out of our Clearwater family. We're extremely proud of that family and the work that went into it.
Cool. So do we have anything else in the Euro-Nymphing world that folks should know about? I know you got some new patterns, and anything else?
Well, sure. First thing I would talk about, I guess, is just to call out our Hydros Tactical Nymph line. The Hydros Tactical Nymph fly line is a specific taper that we built. And a lot of people they have kind of different methodologies on what kind of fly line they want to use. A lot of people want to use a totally level fly line, which makes a lot of sense because you're trying to create less line sag out there. The coated line makes it nice for holding in your hand. There's mono core, which makes it easy for kind of like stripping off the core and doing a really small knot to leader to knock the fly line connection. And then there's mono cores, and then there's multi-filament cores, which work a little bit better in the colder weather. They don't get so kind of stiff and rigid. And they also allow you to kind of run that Chinese finger trap, methodology leader if you want to do that, if you don't want to use the loop-to-loop. The Hydros Tactical Nymph is a multi-filament braided core. And multi-filaments basically like Dacron is the best way I can kind of explain it to you. That core was done specifically it's got a loop on it. It was done specifically so it works mainly in trout conditions, which are relatively cooler environments. Obviously, when you get into the warmer part of the summer, it doesn't really get gummy. It is not a level line. It was done that way. It was built to be basically what I call a micro double taper. So the minimum competition thinness is 22 thousandths. The Hydrous Tackle Nymph starts at 28 thousandths, which is 6/1000ths of an inch larger, and goes up to about 32 to 34 thousandths. That's a very thin difference. But what you get out of that and having a little bit thicker in the middle double taper is you actually have a taper there, so it loads. I wanted to build a line with the Hydrous Tactical Nymph that not only give you great performance, it's got a long front taper, that not only gives you that great performance for European nymphing, but all of a sudden you come around the corner, there's 2 fish up. Can I actually put a standard leader on here and be able to cast it as well? So it's a super versatile line. There's a lot of level fly lines out there, and there's no discernible difference between them. The Hydrous Tactical Nymph gives you the performance and the metrics that you need to have for a European nymph fly line, but gives you just a little bit on the back end to be able to have a versatile line as well. So we're excited about that as well. There's a lot of new fly patterns on Orvis.com as well. Currently, our giant fly sale is going, so all of our flies are now 20% off on our website. But there's a substantial amount of kind of Perdigon style flies now available as well. And basically, that's a UV coated fly that sinks better, so even less resistance, right? You kind of cover everything in a UV coating, and it sinks a little bit faster. A lot of jig style flies. Everything you could possibly kind of need is there. We're really proud of how that selection has grown. So it's worth checking out and taking advantage of the giant fly cell. And there's 2 nymph selections as well.
And speaking of that, Ryan asked our very first question when we started this thing was, what's the best color nymph during dark, murky water at high levels in spring?
Ooh, that's a good question. What is the best nymph? Nymph color or nymph color? I mean, dark usually, right? So there's no shame in my game to say that Vermont is a tough place to fish opening day. Water is usually high, cold, and dirty. We don't have prolific trout populations, but we have sizable fish. And my go-to flies are on my Euro rig are a stonefly and a squirmy or San Juan or whatever it wants to be. I get a lot of fish to eat that stonefly early on. Dark has a tendency. If the water's really murky, those hot spots and triggers aren't going to necessarily show up like you think they are underneath the water. So just having a presence and a silhouette that's buggy seems to work. It is runoff. It's cold. There's a lot of bank erosion going on. Like it, love it, hate it. Fish eat worms, and this time of the year is where there's just a prevalent amount of worms. Now, if you're a person who wants to get into feed bugs, absolutely. You got small stones, you've got early paralips, you've got betas, you got Hendrickson nymphs, but in different parts of the country, some of those bugs aren't necessarily moving. And if the water is working against you, give yourself a fair advantage and give them something that they can see. And if, like I said, Pat's rubber leg and squirmy are kind of my go-to and have been for many years here in Vermont, at least.
Do European anglers use a squirmy?
In Europe or just in general?
Yeah, no, in Europe.
I don't know, to be complete. I mean, of course they do, right? It's not like it's like a, yeah, I would assume so. I would assume so. I'd be shocked if not.
And this one's right up your alley as well. It's from our friend Dave Rossett, who shows up for all of these things. Thanks, Dave. Does Orvis have any plans to bring back the clear plastic compartment fly box?
Oh, the 1079? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, Dave did call it the 1079. I was just translating.
He did.
No,
I was going to say, so the 1070, this is a long, the 1079 is the actual SKU number, just to give everybody preference. But since the day I walked in the door, there's been an ongoing conversation about the 1079 fly box. It has come forward and been pushed back so many different times, but it's like a zombie. We just can't kill it. And not that we want to, because we know it's important and we know I have a place for it, but we're really proud of all of the stuff that Orvis has been putting out over the last few years. And what's happened is it's unfortunately been taken a back seat to the amount of resources we have, the people available. It's taken a back seat to thing. It will come back in some form or another. I mean, Tim Doughton might be cringing with me saying that a little bit right now, but the 1079 will become the 1080 or something like that, or the 2079 or something like that. Deltron or whatever. But we'll hope that at some point we can continue. We actually have started to look at some specific characteristics that we would like to accomplish with the box like that, but it is not on a current development list.
Sorry, Dave. You'll be the first to know.
But I'm with you, Dave. I'm with you.
Okay. Any more questions before we send Jesse back to homeschooling his kids?
Yeah. Home office. Right.
All right. Well, Jesse, thanks a lot. That was great. Folks, check out these rods. It's pretty cool. Right now, I'm pretty sure we've got free shipping on everything for fly fishing as well.
That's correct.
So it is a good time. And we are getting back out on the water.
Yeah.
It will happen. All right. Thanks a lot, Jesse.
Thank you. Everybody stay safe. We appreciate your time. And thanks.
We'll see you next week. Bye.
Take care.